Okay, well, thank you, Lauren. I appreciate it, and welcome everyone to our introduction to OSHA for small businesses. Thank you for joining us today, and for this important webinar about how you as a small business should comply to OSHA. I want to thank our Georgia Tech Safety, Health, and Environmental Services Group for partnering with us on this important information. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our corporate sponsors, Comcast, EPCO, and Train, for continuing to provide financial support as well as moral support to help to keep our programs going. Just very quickly, I know many of you have heard this before, but we have some new people on the line who may not know who the Minority Business Development Agency Centers are, but we are the MBDA Centers at Georgia Tech, and our primary mission is to help grow and strengthen minority-owned businesses, or MBEs, and help make them sustainable, thereby having a positive impact on our community. MBDA is the only federal agency that has been established, or that was established over 50 years ago, specifically to focus on minority businesses, that is your growth and development. We are part of a national network of about 40 plus centers and special projects, all working across the country to help the minority business community and basically our communities at large. In addition to our business centers, that we do have specialty centers in the MBDA network. We have 4 export centers that focus on Latin America, Asia, Africa, and the Caribbean. So if you're interested in exporting to those countries, our centers can help you do that, as well as other parts of the world. We have a federal procurement center for those of you who are doing business or want to do business with the federal government. We have a center that sits in Washington, D.C. to help you. And finally, we have 4 advanced manufacturing centers, one in Texas, Detroit, Baltimore, and then one here at Georgia Tech. So we have a vast national network with all types of partners and resources working on your behalf. Here's our team. While I won't go through everyone, we have a robust team of contractors and Georgia Tech employees that are, work to help build out our programs and to bring you technical assistance as well as training and education. On the line today, we have Lauren Roberts, who's our program specialist, Aisha Jones, our special event planner, and Brandy Nagel, who is also our program manager. This program today is being brought to you as part of our CARES Act Assistance Program. We did receive some additional funding through the CARES Act as a result of COVID-19 to bring specialized training and technical assistance to companies. Through our CARES Assistance Act, we are helping companies comply to the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP, so that your loans will be forgiven. We're also helping companies process the new PPP as it was just recently released through the CARES Act. So do reach out and contact our center if you need assistance with processing your PPP. We're also doing all kinds of things like pulse checks to see how you're doing, identifying other sources of income or funding for our companies. We have noticed that as a result of COVID, we've seen more grants that are focused on small businesses in the minority business community. So do feel free to reach out to our center so that we can help you. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to our partners, the SHE's group as we call them, for their introduction to OSHA for small businesses. Enjoy. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kenny Davis, and I'm a safety consultant with the Georgia Tech Safety and Health Consultation Program. And I'd like to welcome everyone here today for the introduction to OSHA for small businesses. And I'd like to thank Donna Ennis and the rest of the MBDA team for inviting us to participate in these. Just muted myself. Bear with me. All right, so here's my contact information if any of you have any questions following up on what we discussed today, or just general safety questions going forward. Feel free to reach out at any time to me or any of my colleagues on the call today. So today we're going to be discussing OSHA's history, importance, and their scope, and I'll identify employer and employee rights and responsibilities, and describe OSHA's stance on discrimination as outlined in 11C. And then Dana will take over and discuss how OSHA standards are organized and developed, outline OSHA's record keeping and reporting requirements, and identify the steps of the OSHA inspection process, including citations, violations, and penalties, and the employer's right to contest them. He'll also describe the elements of a safety and health management system, and then Paul will finish up discussing information about compliance assistance. So here we have some data. So small businesses represent more than 99% of employers and employ more than half of all private sector employees. They pay 45.5% of all U.S. private payroll and generate between 60 and 80% of new jobs annually. So OSHA, who are they? So the William Steiger Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970, or the OSHA Act, was passed to prevent workers from being killed or seriously harmed at work. This law created the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, also known as OSHA, which sets and enforces protective workplace safety and health standards. OSHA also provides information, training, and assistance to employers and workers. OSHA's mission is to ensure safe and healthful working conditions for working men and women by setting and enforcing standards and by providing training, outreach, education, and assistance. And OSHA does fall under the Department of Labor. So the importance of OSHA by the data. So prior to 1970, more than 14,000 worker fatalities occurred annually. 2.5 million workers were disabled by work-related injuries, and an estimated 300,000 cases of work-related illnesses were reported. So the importance of OSHA. So since 1970, work-related fatalities have been reduced by 62%. Overall injury and illness rates have been reduced by 42%. And trenching fatalities have been reduced by 35%. In addition, brown lung disease has been eliminated. And for those of you who may not be familiar with brown lung disease, also known as bisonosis, it is caused by cotton dust exposure. In a response to more than 50,000 cotton textile workers suffering from the disease, OSHA enacted the Cotton Dust Standard 29 CFR 1910-1043. Since enactment of the standard, brown lung disease has been eliminated. So OSHA's tools. OSHA's tools include strong, fair, and effective enforcement. This includes the inspection process, violations and penalties, contesting inspection results, outreach and education and compliance assistance, which includes outreach materials, education and training, compliance assistance, and OSHA consultation services. These are all items that Paul will discuss here a little bit later in our presentation. Partnerships and other cooperative programs such as alliances, OSHA strategic partnerships, the voluntary protection partnerships for larger companies, and then we have SHARP, or the Safety and Health Achievement Recognition Program for our small and medium-sized companies. So again, Paul will be discussing those with you all coming up. So who's covered by OSHA? So commonly we come across the question from employers as to whether or not they fall under OSHA due to the fact that they have less than 10 employees. This is often confused with the record-keeping requirements, which Dana will get into a little bit later. So the answer is yes. All private sector employers having one or more employees is covered under OSHA. Those jurisdictions include the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, American Samoa, Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, Wake Island, Johnston Island, and the Outer Continental Shelf. Who's not covered are self-employed workers or independent workers. So 1099 contractors are not covered under OSHA. Employer responsibilities. So we'll talk about the general duty clause here. So per Public Law 91-596, Section 5A1, also known as the general duty clause, employer shall furnish to each of his employees employment and a place of employment which are free from recognized hazards that are causing or likely to cause death or serious physical harm to his employees. And Public Law 91-596, 5A2 says that employees or employers shall comply with occupational safety and health standards promulgated under this act. So going back to the OSHA Act. Additionally, employers must keep workers informed about OSHA and safety and health matters with which they are involved, be familiar with mandatory OSHA standards, make copies of standards available to employees for review upon their request, evaluate the workplace for conditions, minimize or eliminate potential hazards, warn employee of potential hazards, report reportable events to OSHA. And again, Dana will get into that a little bit later, as well as maintain record-keeping documentation. They must also provide access to employee medical records and exposure records to the employee and others as required by law. So employer rights. Employers have the right to seek advice in on-site consultation. So that's, again, on-site consultation. That is something that Paul will talk about a little bit later. Be involved in job safety and health through industry association, request and receive proper identification of OSHA compliance officers, apply for a variance from a standards requirements when technical expertise and materials are unavailable and other means have been provided to protect employees, and submit information or comments to OSHA on the issuance, modification, or revocation of OSHA standards and request a public hearing, as well as many other rights. Employee responsibilities and rights. So per Public Law 91-596, Section 5B, each employee shall comply with occupational safety and health standards and rules and regulations and orders issued pursuant to this act, which are applicable to his own actions and conduct. They should report any job-related injury or illness to their employer and seek treatment promptly. And employers do have the right to review the copies of appropriate OSHA standards which apply to the work that they're performing. Request that OSHA investigate if you believe hazardous conditions are violations of standards exist in your workplace. Have their name withheld from the employer if you file an employee complaint. Have an authorized employee representative accompany the OSHA compliance officer during an OSHA inspection. And observe any monitoring or measuring of hazardous materials and see any related monitoring or medical records, as well as many other rights. So this is it's the law job safety poster. So this is a poster that needs to be posted conspicuously in the workplace so that all employees can see it. Do not fall for the trick of, there's a lot of companies out there that will actually try to sell you this poster. I think you can actually buy it on Amazon, but you can print it from the website or request one from OSHA's website for free. And that link is provided in our references section on one of the last slides there. So, employee discrimination. So Section 11C provides in general that no person shall discharge or in any manner discriminate against any employee because the employee has filed a complaint under or related to the Act, instituted or caused to be instituted any proceeding under or related to the Act, testified or is about to testify in any proceeding under the Act or related to the Act, and exercised on his own behalf or on behalf of others any right afforded by the Act. Any employee who believes that he has been discriminated against is in violation of Section 11C of the Act may, within 30 days after such violation occurs, lodge a complaint with a Secretary of Labor alleging such violation. The Secretary shall then cause appropriate investigation to be made. If, as a result of such investigation, the Secretary determines that the provisions of Section 11C have been violated, civil action can occur, and to obtain other appropriate relief, including rehiring or reinstatement of the employee to his or her former position with back pay. Section 11C further provides for notification of complainants by the Secretary of Determination made pursuant to their complaints. And here I'm going to hand it over to Dana, or somebody will hand it over to Dana.
Thank you, Kenny. I'd like to thank everyone. I'd like to thank Don Ennis and the MBA people for having me here today. Let me introduce myself. My name is Dana Atkinson. I am a research associate here with the OSHA OTIEC and the EI Squared group. I'm an instructor and course director in the OSHA 511 General Industry Standards course and a faculty member in the Professional Masters in Occupational Safety and Health course here at Georgia Tech under the School of Building Construction. We can go to the next slide. What I'm going to talk to you guys about here today would be the elements of the intro, some of the elements of the OSHA that is pertinent to the small business owner that goes out there.
Dana, feel free to change your slides.
Oh, okay. I have control to change the slides? Somehow?
Yes.
I don't know how I'm doing.
Okay, I'll change
it. It's on the left-hand side.
The bar on the left-hand side.
On the left. Okay, there it is. All right, thank you. There we go. Okay. So let's start with the rule book, the rules of the game. 29 CFR standing for Code of Federal Relations. So these are the federal rules, federal law, excuse me. 1903 and 1904, those subsections of 29 CFR and labor rules are basically like the rules on the back of the Monopoly box. And I'll hammer that metaphor for a little bit while longer again. But the inspection citations, proposed penalties of what OSHA can and can't do and how they're going to do their inspections, how they're going to cite and the dollar values associated with it. And then in 1904, it talks about record keeping. It's the documentation of injuries and illness in the workplace. Why is that valuable and how long has that been going on? This was given to OSHA from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, so they've been doing the collection of this information since the Industrial Revolution. And why is it important? We often see in a lot of reports where we start talking about injuries and illnesses have this percentage effect on the GDP as a nation. That's great in the macro, but in the smaller aspect of it, the micro aspect of it, of course, how does it affect, or we have a metric to describe how injuries and illness in the workplace affect small businesses and affect our ability to do business efficiently and profitably. So once we get past 1903 and 1904, the quote-unquote rules of the game, then we have to figure out what game we're doing. 1910 being general industry, and that's the biggest pool per se. General industry is the manufacturing, all the things that you're doing that are not, by default, maritime, construction, or agriculture. The 1915 to 1918 maritime standard, the 1926 construction standard, the 1928 agricultural standard, I call those variances. Those are a set of rules that were created that are built on top of the general industry standard rules. They give you variances for different elements of what's done in maritime, done in construction, agricultural, that's just different from general industry. You get some there. I say it all the time that I say that the 1926 construction standard, which is the next biggest pool next to general industry, is a set of variances that exist because of the dynamic nature of construction, the temporary nature of construction. And they give those construction guys some leeway in regards to doing what they do differently than a fully built out and for more structured general industry standard environment. So once we figure out where the rules are, how do you read the rules? This is a relatively famous standard. It's the very first standard, the machine guarding standard. Basically, if you deduce this standard down, it just basically says if it moves, it should be guarded. And that's what we think safety people do, right? We just make sure that everybody shows up to work with 10 or so fingers and goes home with 10 or so fingers. So we'll base all of our actions here on 12A1. But to read it or to reference it by somebody, you would say 29 CFR 1910-212A1. And then there would be some codification next to that, and you would read that talking about machine guarding and going from there. As consultants here at Georgia Tech, when we go out there and do the free consultation, part of the 21D program for small businesses we got to do, when we document things that we find that are associated with standards, this is exactly how the report would look. We would look and say we've seen some issues with 1910-212, 1910-157, 1910-134, 1910-219, so forth and so on. So this is how this is the lingo of understanding or referencing the standards in the OSHA world. So this is the OSHA website. Every time there's a new executive branch, the OSHA's personality kind of changes. And why does OSHA's personality change? Is because labor is a cabinet position, and under the two assistant secretaries under labor, one of them is the one that runs OSHA. So every time there's a new cabinet appointment, they appoint new people. We just got an announcement of the new head of OSHA the other day. I forget the guy's name. But when they come in, they're going to change things a little bit. And what changes often is what the website looks like, but not what is on the website. And basically, you can see on the top bar there, off to the left, there is a link for OSHA, and that talks about all the things that OSHA does and the rules of the game. And then we start talking about the standards, laws, regulations, so forth and so on. That is where you would find the things like I just talked about in the previous slide, 1910-212A1. You would find a list of standards, and those standards are listed as either part of the record keeping, the inspections and citations, general industry, maritime, construction, or agriculture. There's also some other useful resources on that site. They're talking about topics, what's on OSHA's plate, what are they focusing on. Some of the things you may see there would be a focus on silica exposure, or temporary workers, or youth workers, or any of those aspects there. Whatever's on OSHA's plate on a national scope or even a regional scope, that would be listed there under topics. And then also this website is not just informational, it also gives you some tools, the help and resources link in there. You'll find things like fact sheets. You'll find things like e-tools. One of my favorite e-tools is the e-pay tools. It talks about the value proposition of safety and realizing what safety costs you in regards to your, not revenue, but your profit margin, and how much more profit margin you need to put in play to pay for injuries and illnesses that could have been invested to mitigate beforehand. Long story, but those are some of the tools that are on the OSHA Gov website that are useful. So when we go to the OSHA website and on the internet, we're going to use things in electronic format, which is so much better than the old school methodology. This is a Manicom book that I use all the time to look things up old school wise. Going to the eCFR, you can do word searches, keyword searches of PDF documents, and find the terminology and the material you need when somebody says to you, well, OSHA says. This is where you can go and reference this and use this as a tool to either confirm or counteract the OSHA says, either rumor, statement, or actual fact. So, standard development. Where did OSHA come about? Why did it come about? And if it did come about, what topics are we going to start talking about? What does OSHA need to focus on? When OSHA was officially created in 1970, it was a wide open field, and they brought all the subject matter experts in and talked about what were the concerns and issues in the work. 1972, they kind of closed that door and open development, and then they had to start asking for a procedure where there's petitions and other parties, and they intend to propose and amend and revoke. It takes a while. There are a lot of gears in the machine that is OSHA for things to be addressed. It goes from there. But they tip their hand. They put things in the newsletters, things like quick takes, and on the OSHA website about what they're focusing on, and when they do finally make a decision and create something, and their subject matter experts will agreed on what is, they'll put it out there in the world and give a full explanation on the preamble on where it came from and what it's about. And that would become the final outcome of a standard ornament. So let's get into the nuts and bolts here. Reporting and record keeping. This is the onus on small business to report any injuries, illnesses, and fatalities that they may be associated with in the work environment. The fatalities, catastrophes within 8 hours is from within 8 hours of the time that you've found that there's been a fatality or catastrophe associated with your business. what is a catastrophe? It's something really bad. No, a catastrophe is something very specific. If you have one or more employees that are admitted to the hospital for observation due to something that happened in your work environment, then you're required to call OSHA within 24 hours of finding out about the hospitalization. There's an 800 number on the website, so forth and so on, to use to make this phone call, or you can email them as well. The number for catastrophe is 8 hours. The number of fatalities is 8 hours as well. When you find out about the fatality or find out about the hospitalization, 8 hours. Loss of an eye amputation, impending hospitalization within 24 hours. Wrong button here to change this slide. All right. So record keeping, documentation of the issues that happen in the work environment in regards to injuries and illnesses. Obviously, need to be work related. We put that in there because that is sometimes determining work relatedness can be tricky, but it is what it is. It has to be a work related aspect there, and the injury and illness will have these associated things associated with days away, restricted job transfer, all talking about productivity. The days away employees is away, that costs you some productivity. Restricted work costs some activity. Job transfer costs some activity in regards to productivity. Like I said, this data be collected, not just for the idea of trying to deduce where the problems are, but it also has a profitability or an economic impact associated with it as well as it works its way up towards the Bureau of Labor Statistics and what they do with the information. A fatality, loss of consciousness, lead of sticks, or exposure, all these things are recordable incidents or recordable elements. And looking at the regulations, you can see how you record these things on your 300 log. Keep using that. All right. So I just mentioned for the first time there, I said 300 log. There are 3 documents in record keeping that are important. You have your 300 log, which is your injury illness log, is your initial part there. You have your 301, which is actually the incident report of the log itself. And then you have your 300A, the summary of work-related injuries and illnesses in your workplace. Now, the 300 and the 301, those can be internal documents. Those are your internal documentation of aspects there. So then that will cover the aspect in regards of HIPAA exposure issues, things like that, bring the information out. The only document here that is a public document that has to be published that OSHA is concerned with is your 300, well, not OSHA is concerned with your 300 and 301, but your 300A is what needs to be published once a year between February 1st and April 30th, posted, and it is your summation of the injuries and illnesses you have in your workplace. And that summation is where you get your data to be able to create the things we talked about on the previous slide: DART rate, days away, job rotation, and those economic impacts associated with those things. These documents, they make sense if you have, a very small workforce. But when you start having hundreds of people in your workforce, an electronic version of these documents, specifically the 301 and the 300, make much more sense for you to use as a small business. The 300A, that is the one that you leave alone. That is the one that you still have to do in a hard copy and post and so forth and so on. But as you'll see in some of the slides coming up, OSHA is requiring electronic reporting associated with the other documents that are in the record keeping aspect. All right. All right. So like I said before, electronic submission of the injury and tracking application is on the OSHA.gov website. Information in regards to how to do this properly is in the 1904 standard in Appendix A. And Appendix A will give you the guidelines in regards to who has to report if they have 250 more employees, or who has to report in establishments that it's 220 to 249 in regards to the severity of the nature of business that you have, whatever business you're doing. All right. So let's define the catastrophes and fatalities and injuries and accidents that OSHA is concerned with. When OSHA shows up to inspect a facility or inspect a report or respond to a report, they have a certain set of priorities. And the priority list you can see is listed on the right-hand side here. The first thing they're always concerned with is imminent danger, something that's happening right now. If OSHA happen to knock on your door and come in to do an inspection, if it's not something that's an imminent right now, you have an hour to deal with the OSHA inspector before you have to let them on your facility, let them on your site to do the actual inspection. Not unless it's an imminent danger. It's something that's happening, right? You've got somebody up high who's not tied off in some aspect there. You've got somebody who's in a trench or some kind of hole in the ground there. It's a trench that's within 4 feet. There's no trench around them. Those are imminent dangers that are posing injury to somebody or danger to someone right now. The hour delay is thrown out the window, and they can come in there and inspect immediately to deal with those aspects there. We even had a case where there was a company that was doing refrigeration of food products and distribution, and they had an ammonia leak that was reported in their refrigerant set. And that was an imminent danger to anybody who was in that refrigerant area. So the inspector was able to go in immediately and inspect. Second priority for OSHA is fatality and catastrophe. We talked about fatality and catastrophes in a couple of slides before. You may kind of raise an eyebrow and go, you mean fatalities are a second priority to OSHA? Yes, they are, because the idea is the fatality has already happened, and we've already defined a catastrophe previously. Third priority is referral of complaints. Somebody's called OSHA, somebody's emailed OSHA, somebody sent something to OSHA saying, hey, there's an issue here. I'd like you to come take a look at it. That is their third priority. Not all some referrals will bear the fruit of an actual visit. Not all the time. Once again, OSHA is woefully understaffed, but they will make their own personal judgment on the severity of the exposure issue or the likelihood of the exposure issue in the complaint and the referral, and then judge accordingly whether or not it will be a visit or a phone call or the kind of documentation to deal with the issue that's been referred to. And then the last priority is programmed inspections. OSHA will establish either regional or national emphasis programs focusing on either task, injury, or some kind of condition in the work environment that OSHA wants to apply resources to. Be it robotics, be it the poultry industry, the automotive industry, or be it a youth worker, temporary worker, whatever the aspect is. They'll create programs and then either national or regional in scope and apply resources to them. And that in that aspect there is fourth priority. So what's going to happen when OSHA knocks on your door? Hopefully nobody panics and runs and closes the door and freaks out. The COSHO will show up, presentation of credentials. We have had cases where people would want to impersonate a COSHO. They want to see what you're doing. They want to get a tour of your facility, whatever the aspect is. Ask them for credentials. Federal COSHOs have a badge and an ID, and you call the regional office that they're associated with to see and validate that this person is this person and they're where they're supposed to be. Once they get there and you've gone and set them to a safety rotation before they open your facility, so forth and so on, there's going to be the opening conference where they'll talk about why they're there, what are they inspecting. If there is a referral or a complaint of some aspect there, they can show you that if it's whatever it is. It can be anonymous or not. Kenny already spoke to Section 11C, and Section 11C exists to protect people who issue OSHA complaints from that's what I'm looking for. Retribution in the work environment for calling OSHA on their employer. That's what Section 11C protects those employers from doing that. Once they've gotten the admin stuff out of the way aspect there, they're going to do a walkthrough. They're going to walk through your facility. Whatever a COSHO sees, they have to cite. Whatever they see, they have to cite. So you take them through the facility. There's no reason to give them a tour of your entire facility. Just take them where they want to go. Take them where they're willing to take a look at and work with them accordingly. You do not want to have upset COSHO, so you want to be cordial and work with them accordingly. Once the walkthrough is completed, there's the closing conference. They will discuss what they found. Citations will not be issued yet. Citations are created when the COSHO goes back to the office of the area regional director and determines severity and penalty. Anything that happens between the end of the closing conference and the issuing of citations is referred to as informal conferencing. And informal conferencing is extremely powerful in regards to demonstration of good faith if you are, mea culpa, have some issues with OSHA citations on in your plan. OSHA, after the closing conference is over, has 6 months to issue said citations in writing. These citations will be specific in regards to the specific standard you have violated the OSHA regulations, i.e. 1910-212A1, 1910-157C3, whatever the aspect is. and you have the right to contest said citations when received. With the contestment, has to be in written format, has to be done within 15 days of receiving citations, so forth. You go from there. And taking the contestment to the next level would be taking it to a third-party arbitrator that would look and review that material, review the case. Inform the employer and the employees of the regulations and standards associated when you receive said citation. Like I said, propose a let for a set of time for abatement and any dollar value penalties associated with it. OSHA takes mercy on small business. The big numbers you see in $12,000, $120,000, so forth, are only for the big guys. The penalties are determined by the gravity-based penalty program that exists to figure out the dollar value associated with the size of the business, history, and good faith. Like I said, you can contest, 15 working days to write it up, and must be written. The written notice must be sent to the OSHA area director to officially contest any citations received. There are some of the dollar values we talked about here. Now they've gone up a little bit. They go up every year now. There's an adjustment aspect there. De minimis is a violation that has no dollar value associated. It's just a documentation of something OSHA is saying that is not directly the letter of the law following the standard, but they can give you that leeway to do it because of extenuating circumstances. But as you can see there, the big numbers are for the big guys. Small companies, the OSHA shows mercy with small companies, and your dollar values will be something as a percentage of that, usually a much smaller percentage than 50. So to control these aspects in regard to not get cited by OSHA, you have to manage your safety. Safety doesn't happen by luck. The management system is anticipation, detection of hazards, prevention and control, planning and evaluation, the administration and supervision of people doing their work properly and following the rules, accountability, safety and health training, management leadership. One of the things we find always in regards to applying resources to safety and training is that you have to have somebody in management who's a champion that decides that safety is not a priority. Safety is part of their culture. It's an expectation. And then once you have the management leadership and championship, then you can start seeing that employees will believe in that, and then they'll become part of the process, just basically because of self-preservation to a certain extent. But all those aspects there are elements of the safety and health management system that can make it effective and save you money in the long run and save the integrity of your business. And with that, I'll wrap it up, and I'm going to hand over to Paul. Go ahead, Paul.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Donna, and the MBDA team. My name is Paul Schlumper. As you can see, I'm the director of the Safety, Health, Environmental Services Group and also the manager of the consultation program. Very happy to be here with you this afternoon. And what I want to talk to you about is where you can go for more help. Most people, when they think about OSHA, they think about the regulations and they think about the inspections and the penalties and all the negative things, right? But there are a lot of things available to you either directly from OSHA or through organizations like our organization where you can get help with your safety and health management system, as Dana talked about. So I'm going to give you a taste of what some of those programs are. So OSHA has, in addition to their enforcement office, they also have an office of small business assistance. And by the way, you can get information on any of these programs from OSHA's website. I'm sure it's in this presentation somewhere, but it's easy to remember, OSHA.gov. That's their website. But the Office of Small Business Assistance monitors the on-site safety and health consultation program, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. They also serve as a liaison within OSHA for small businesses, and they provide additional outreach and compliance assistance and courses and training to small businesses. So there's also a site on the OSHA.gov website called Quick Start. Now, we don't really have time to get into this in a lot of detail, but if you're fairly new to the OSHA world and occupational safety and health, you may want to go visit this site because whether you're general industry, construction, or healthcare, the Quick Start site walks you through a series of questions and answers and provides you with resources to address some of the things that are very commonly cited within your industry. So it'll give you a good starting point in terms of trying to identify your compliance status. So I want to talk to you briefly about the on-site safety and health consultation program. This is a program that's near and dear to our hearts because we operate this program in the state of Georgia. Now, the consultation program in general is all over the country. As you can see, all 50 states, District of Columbia, Virgin Islands, Guam. So every state and even some territories have a consultation program. It's typically operated either through a state government entity or through an educational institution like Georgia Tech. The program is available no cost to small to medium-sized businesses. The funding comes directly from OSHA with a little bit of cost share from your individual state. So the consultation program is no cost, and it deals with occupational safety, occupational health, or any number of other specialized areas like possibly ergonomics. Now, currently here in the state of Georgia, we are running both virtual visits and on-site activities. So depending on whether you're comfortable having somebody come onto your site or whether you'd rather do a visit like this through a video conferencing type technology, we can help you with in either way. So the goal obviously is to help employers create a safer work environment for their employees. Now, as far as how the program works, and this is pretty much the same in every state. Again, if you're in Georgia, you're going to contact our office. But how it works, the company initiates the request. This is a voluntary program. Nobody is requiring you to do this. You should do this because you want to improve your compliance status. You want to improve your safety and health management system. Now, one thing that you do want to keep in mind if you're interested in consultation is that there is something we call the serious hazard obligation. All serious hazards have to be corrected within an agreed upon time frame. So, when a consultant comes out to your site, they will go through the site activities, or virtually, they'll go through the virtual activities, and then you'll end up typically with a list of items. Some of the items might be classified as serious, some might be other than serious, some might even be regulatory or paperwork type issues. Anything that's classified as serious, you have to correct, again, within an agreed upon time frame. So don't request consultation if you're not willing to take action after the consultation visit. But it is an outstanding program. The consultation program, we're not enforcement. We don't issue citations. We don't propose penalties. The program is completely confidential. We don't share information with anyone, including OSHA, as to where we have been and what the activities on site and that sort of information. And so we don't report those violations to OSHA. And of course, we also don't guarantee that your facility will pass an OSHA inspection. Any audit or evaluation is going to be a snapshot of what was done that day. So it's certainly not a guarantee. But I will tell you, if you work with consultation, you're going to get a really good idea of at least the more commonly violated issues that you may have to deal with in your facility. So you see here on this slide a listing of some of the typical services. Walkthrough surveys. We typically do either a safety visit or a health visit or both. On the safety side, we're more concerned with instantaneous immediate hazards, things like machine hazards and falls and electrical safety and maybe chemical exposures or fire. On the health side, they're more concerned with exposures over time. So things like noise or possibly contaminants, exposure to contaminants, things of that nature. So we can do one or the other or both. We will certainly look at work practices and try to help you with procedures that may contribute to injuries. We will look at your records. As Dana mentioned, the 300, the 301, the 300A forms. We'll take a look at them, make sure you're logging everything correctly. We will definitely want to take a look at your programs, and you see a listing of some of those programs there. Hopefully some of those are familiar to you. We will evaluate your safety and health management system, the last slide that Dana covered. We're going to talk to you about that and make sure that you've got the processes in place to manage your own safety in the future. We do air sampling, we do noise measurements, we can provide you with model programs, and we can even do some training for you. Now, when I say training, we're not going to come in and do training on your processes. We can come in and do training on what OSHA requires and what OSHA says for your folks, and then you can take it and do the specific training that you need for your particular facility. So here's our website, and probably the most important thing I can tell you in this presentation is how to get a hold of us, and I don't know if it's on this slide or somewhere. I know it's on another slide, but our website is www.oshainfo.gatech.edu. Any of our services, whether it's consultation, whether it's one of our training courses, whether it's any number of other things, even these seminars that we're doing in conjunction with MBDA, you can get information on them from our website. So if you're wondering where to go, our website is a good first place with respect to safety and health. So there are a number of other cooperative programs I wanted to mention briefly. Of course, the first one is one that we operate out of Georgia Tech, and that's the SHARP program. The SHARP program is done in conjunction with or in association with the consultation program. So if you want to become SHARP, then you need to go through the consultation request process. So again, we are always actively looking for good, best of the best type companies that are eligible for SHARP. Not everybody's going to get into SHARP. You have to be, a company that's kind of up there in terms of your safety and health management system and your injury and illness rates and correcting the hazards that we identify. So for some companies, it takes a little while to get to SHARP. But it is a recognition program of the best of the best. Now, I'm going to stop at this point. I understand we do have some questions. Donna, are you going to unmute folks for those questions?
Yes, I'll unmute.
Actually, so what we'll be doing at this point, if we're going to be taking questions, attendees, if you're on WebEx, you should notice a little hand icon on the lower right that looks like a hand next to the little megaphone. If you click on that, you will raise your hand, and we will unmute you if you have your hand raised, and you can ask your question. If you don't want to talk, you can put your question into the question box.
I think, Lauren, we could start with some questions that you may have.
Okay, so to get us started, I do have a couple of questions. First one is, what are some violations you typically see in a small business that may not be construction or manufacturing related?
I'll be glad to start, and Kenny and Dana, you guys can jump in. If you look at, and actually go to our website, because we post a list of the most frequently cited OSHA regulations on our website for all of general industry. So depending on what you do, obviously is going to have a bearing on what might be cited. But you could probably start with something called hazard communication. That's one of the more frequently cited standards. It involves chemicals and having safety data sheets and doing training and labeling of chemicals and having a written program. So that's one of the most commonly cited items for pretty much everybody, because almost everybody has chemicals. Other than that, you can go down the list of most frequently cited. A lot of people get cited for machine guarding issues. A lot of people get cited for lockout, tagout. Of course, that assumes that you have machines and that you do servicing and maintenance of machines. That's where lockout, tagout comes in. And then go on down. Kenny or Dana, do you guys want to add anything to that?
Yeah, Paul. So powered industrial trucks or forklifts, that's another big one. Being trained or doing your inspections on those. General walking, working surfaces types things, housekeeping, that can occur in anywhere. Fall protection as well, training your employees on different types of fall hazards and how to eliminate them. Electrical hazards, if you're in an office area or if you're in a manufacturing setting or construction setting, there's always the potential for electrical hazards. So those are the ones I have. Do you have anything, Dana?
I would just make it bigger in a macro and just say, if you got a small business, labeling and labeling all the things, be it chemicals or label a smaller container you make of a chemical that came with a label, labeling your circuit breaker box. When Kenny starts talking about electrical aspect there, you really frame it all in the idea of one of the things that are a gap in, say, lack of process of knowledge transfer. So don't make it about what people know. Give them guidance, and whatever you got, label it so they clear people how to use it and what to use it, what they can do it, and what they can't. And I'll leave it at that, with a big bubble over the top.
Okay, does Erica have a question? There's a question mark next to Erica's name. Erica Mays. Can you unmute her? I think it's...
So I mentioned what is the website again? The OSHA info.
And actually in a couple of slides, I'm going to show you some more resources, Erica, and our website is one of the resources on that slide. So we just didn't quite get to it yet. We felt we needed to stop and take some questions, but I'll show you the web address in just a minute.
Hey, Paul, I actually posted it in the chat.
Yeah, it's in the chat.
It's in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lauren, I think you might have a couple more questions.
Yes, so at this time, another question that I have is, and this is for Sheath, can you comment on how businesses should safeguard the company and employees when their employees are sent to other companies to work on projects? As an example, the staffing agencies, technology and IT companies, professional service firms, things of that nature.
Great question. I'll go ahead and start, and you guys can chime in if you'd like. So, what I usually recommend to small employers when I see that type of situation is, really it starts with really good communication and pre-planning. I think I know that sounds kind of obvious, but if you're going to have folks going out on site to another facility, another company's site, and you don't have control over everything, then you've got to equip your employees with the knowledge that they need to assess and take action. A lot of staffing agencies nowadays are going out to the host employer's site and doing some work, preliminary work, before they even allow their people to work in that facility. I know that's a very general answer, and Kenny and Dana may have some more specifics to give you, but I think communication and pre-planning and pre-assessment is really the key there.
So I'll just kind of go off of Paul there and kind of get into more of the specifics. So there are certain areas where OSHA does require that the home employer provides information to the contractor and vice versa. So if we're talking about hazard communication, then there's contractor notification requirement there, where basically the home employer, the company where the contractor is working at, has to disclose what hazardous chemicals that contractor may be exposed to, and vice versa. So if the contractor is bringing hazardous chemicals into the workplace, then they would want to make their employees known about those as well. Another area where this is brought up is in lockout tagout. So if you have employers or contractors coming in and doing servicing or maintenance on your equipment, then the home employer it's their responsibility to ensure that the contractor is using a lockout tagout program, whether it's their own or the home employer's program as well. And another instance is in permit required confined space entry, where there's got to be some collaboration back and forth on those entries as well. Do you have anything else, Dana?
I think you guys covered it pretty well. That scenario that somebody brought up always makes me think about, people that go into people's homes to do installation and like their cable guy and things like that. They have to bring their own resources of what they can and cannot do. That's the only thing I can really add on there is, like Paul said, think about the scenario, pre-plan, give your people the resources, and do what you can legally to indemnify.
Okay, great. Do we have any other questions, Lauren?
Yeah, I do have a couple.
Okay. Good.
The one that was sent, do you know if safety related to COVID-19 has been incorporated into OSHA requirements? What's changed, if anything, because of COVID?
Yeah, we definitely don't have enough time to get into all of that. It's a great question. My suggestion to you would be to go to the OSHA website, osha.gov, and right there on the home page, as soon as you pull it up, there's a resource page for COVID. And you can select that resource and go in and find at least the most current enforcement and record keeping and reporting information on COVID-19, because obviously this is still an evolving situation, but you're going to find your best information right there on the OSHA website.
Okay. Any other questions before we begin to wrap up?
And I do have one, which is if you're traveling to and from a work site, like, do fatalities or bad incidents include when employees are traveling? So, like, if somebody's going from the works at a subcontractor's office for construction and they're traveling back and forth from the general contracting site and there's an incident that occurs, what happens?
Yeah, the answer to that is going to be, so Dana talked about two things. He talked about reporting and he talked about recording, right? Reporting means you pick up the phone and call OSHA. Recording means you put it on your log. So the answer to that question is going to depend, first of all, is it work-related travel, right? If it's not work-related travel, then you don't need to worry about it from the OSHA standpoint if it's personal. But if it's work-related travel, then you're going to have to look at recording versus reporting.
Okay.
And that was all the questions I had. I'm just going to give attendees one last opportunity. If you have any questions, put them in the Q&A box or raise your hand. Otherwise, I think we're going to begin wrap up.
Okay, and while we're doing that, first of all, I was looking at the attendee list, and I wanted to thank some of the clients that have attended today, and I know we have some clients that are not located in Georgia. So for those of you who are not in Georgia, there is an OSHA office in your state, as Paul and his group has indicated, that you can go directly to for assistance. If you do that, we want to know, because we want to know that through this webinar you were informed of other resources for OSHA and OSHA training. I'm going to ask Paul to speed through the rest of his slides so that we can give you some information, and then I'm going to wrap up with some of the upcoming webinars that we have with the SHES group here around OSHA, health and safety, I should say, as well as some specific training we have for virtual, managing your employees virtually. So, Paul, you want to take it from here?
Be glad to, and I'm usually pretty good at being brief, so I'll go through these last few just quickly. What you see on this slide are some other recognition programs, VPP, partnerships, alliances. We would encourage you to look into those if you're interested. Again, I mentioned SHARP. If you either feel like you've got an exemplary safety and health management system, or you want to get to the point where you've got an exemplary safety and health management system, please look into SHARP. Please contact us. We are always looking for folks that want to go the extra mile. So it's a great program. You can look through these slides and see the criteria for SHARP, and I'll skip on through that. OSHA also has compliance assistance resources, compliance assistance folks, so you can go to the OSHA website and get access to these people. Training, of course, we are also one of the OSHA Training Institute Ed Centers at Georgia Tech. So, depending on the topic that you're looking for more information is, chances are we've got a course in that. We've got courses in machine guarding, silica, fall protection, trenching. I could go on and on and on. So we've got a lot of courses. They're taught by experienced instructors. And go to our website and you get information on that. So that's this slide here talks a little bit more about some of the statistics for our OSHA Training Institute Education Center. Again, a lot of courses offered. We've been doing it since the early 1990s. So we've been doing it for a while. The courses currently are being held virtually. We're still looking at the calendar, looking at the COVID-19 situation, and trying to determine if and when we're going to be able to come back to the classroom. But right now we're doing everything virtually for the most part, and it's working out very well. So if you have a course you want to attend, go to our website. And you also see another website here, pe.gotech.edu safety. That's a place where you can get a listing of courses. So here are those resource websites that I mentioned earlier. OSHAinfo.gotech.edu, the fourth one down. That's our website. If you want to get in touch with us, if you have questions, that's a good place to start. You can get a hold of us. But we've also given a lot of really good resources from OSHA on these pages as well. I think it's 2 or 3 pages. So please take advantage of these. They're great places to go for more information. Donna, I'll hand it back over to you.
Okay, well, thank you so much. As we wrap up, again, I want to say thank you to everybody for joining us today. I'm going to just really quickly roll through some other training that we have coming up in the month of February. This first is we have 2 more courses that are part of a 3-part series on how you can more effectively manage your workforce and yourself in this virtual environment. So we had a really great first session with Cummings Management, Teresa Cummings of Cummings Management. Our second meeting in February will be about how you can get more out of your virtual training tool, your virtual tools, not just Zoom and WebEx, but she's going to go through some other tools that you can use in the virtual to make you more effective. And the third in the series is on how you manage your employees and help lead them during this time. We will continue, as I mentioned before, let's see. As we may have mentioned before, we have deemed February as Health and Safety Month, although the official National Safety Month is in June. So we thought we wanted to be a little bit early and have sort of our own Health and Safety Month to help our companies get ready for Safety Month in June. And to that end, we will be meeting again with the She's Group in February for a machine guarding webinar. So any of you companies that are either repairing machines, have machines, equipment, construction, manufacturing, you won't want to miss this webinar. Our Health Hazard Awareness webinar is February 23rd, where they'll focus more on the health hazards. And there's a working surfaces webinar as well. So again, as you can see, we have partnered with our She's Group to bring you a lot of information on health and safety. Then I want to wrap up with 2 things. One is the consultation. So we are hosting with our She's Group virtual roundtable consultations. And you will be getting a link to how you can register for those roundtables where there will be a group of us. And you don't have to be in Georgia for this. We'll just have a consultation. They'll be able to answer some questions and talk about your safety and health and get you going whether you're in another state where you need to go, as well as if you're here in Georgia, how they can help you, more extensively with your health and safety efforts. This is important for our small businesses because, again, we often think of health and safety and OSHA as being a construction or manufacturing issue. But there are a lot of health hazards can occur in the workplace, and we just want to make sure that you are aware of what they could be and that you're in compliance. And finally, we have worked with we're working with She's to provide a 10% discount to anybody who comes through the MBDA network to register for any of those courses that Paul mentioned online that are continuing education courses. So reach out to us directly, reach out to me directly, donna.ennis@innovate.gotech.edu if you're interested in taking one of the health and safety or more health and safety courses through our continuing ed. I think, Paul, do you guys have certificate programs? And those courses are CEUs, right? You get CEUs for those courses?
Yeah, we really do, Donna. We got individual courses, and they get a certificate in the course when they complete it, but we also have topics that we have certificate programs in, like general industry safety and health certificate, or construction safety and health certificate, or safety and health management, hazardous materials, maintenance. So we have a number of topics where people can get additional credentials if they attend a series of courses.
So this would be a great professional development for yourself or your staff, your employees. And then finally, I just want to say thank you again for joining us, and thank you to our Safety, Health, and Environmental Services Group, SHES, as they're known here at Georgia Tech. We appreciate you, Paul, Dana, Kenny, for hanging in there with us and bringing us your information and your technical expertise. And without further ado, have a great day, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks,
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.